I was collecting samples of ice and minerals near the southern pole when a storm blew in from the equator, carrying with it great clouds of red dust which engulfed me as though being surrounded by red smoke or a thick crimson mist. With limited visibility, I had to follow a guide rope back to the habitat shelter before the temperature dropped even further. Then I glanced at what appeared to be the shadow of a large figure, larger than any man or woman could possibly be, lumbering through the swirling tempest as though wading through mud. Dismissing it as an optical illusion, I continued on my path, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow was matching my footsteps, stalking me in the growing darkness. Safely inside the habitat module, I removed the restrictive survival gear that had kept me shielded from the harsh environment outside. Peering out of a portal, I looked for the shadow, but I could see nothing there. I watched as the red dust swirled around the capsule and crashed against the glass. In the gloom, I could make out the faint light above the door of the outbuilding, but nothing else. I lowered the metal shutters for protection, but I could still hear the wind howling and the swishing of sand as it rolled across the outer hull. Then came a scraping noise, as though a crowbar was being dragged along the exterior metal panels, feeling out the perimeter. It stopped at the portal and rattled the shutters so violently I thought they would be torn clean off. Then it continued along the wall, tapping, scratching, and knocking as it did, edging closer to the door. There was a loud pounding on the exit hatch, not the repetitive beat one might expect from a person knocking, but an irregular thud, as if something wild and primal was bashing against it. I immediately turned the cast iron valve wheel on the manual safety lock to seal myself in. The pounding eventually ceased, and I pressed my ear to the door to listen. Through the cold metal I could hear the shuffle of hoofed feet scratching in the dirt and gravel outside, and loud puffing snorts like those from a large animal, a horse for example, or a bull. The security alarm was ringing. There had been a breach in the outbuilding where the food stores and transport were kept. Isolated as I was, if these were damaged it could take several months for help to arrive. I dashed to the portal and partially opened the shutter to see if I could assess the damage. Across the yard, dimly lit by the single wall-mounted light, I could just make out the rough shape of the outbuilding through the blood-red cloud of swirling dust. And I could see the black void where the door should be. Then, the figure emerged, ducking as it passed the doorway and easily clearing a foot above the frame as it rose to its full height. Silhouetted against the light, I struggled to make out any details of the mysterious figure, but I could see in each hand it held a supply container, of which I would struggle to lift even one unaided. The figure easily held both of them aloft before smashing them to pieces against the wall and tossing the remnants out across the yard. Some of the fragments crashed against the glass of the portal, and I instinctively retreated into the room. I returned to close the shutter and just caught a final glimpse of the figure as it disappeared into the shadows, heading in the direction of the solar panels. The solar panels were down. Even through the thick red cloud they were reading as active, albeit in a limited capacity. But now the instruments had gone dead, and I was drawing emergency power from the reserve energy cells. Until the dust settled and I could inspect the damage, I wouldn't know if the panels could be repaired, if the equipment to repair them was even still intact. The lights began to flicker, and I was slowly submerged into darkness. The air purifiers rattled and rasped their last breath, and I could see in the dying light the mist of my own breath forming as the heating gave out. There, in the cold and the dark, I sat alone. I listened to the howling wind outside, and the sound of the dust and debris that was carried upon it impacting on the outer shell of the habitat. I've had to put my environment suit back on. With the power running low, the module's heating and environmental systems are failing. I've had to connect the suit's communication system directly to the transmitter to broadcast this SOS message, but my reserves are almost depleted. If you're listening to this, please send an evacuation team. I only have a few hours left. The wind is dying down now, so hopefully the visibility will improve. I'm going to head to the outbuilding as soon as it's clear to see what I can salvage, but I don't hold out much hope. All I've heard for the last few hours is the sound of rending metal. Transmitting remotely through my suit's comms from the outbuilding. The walls have been torn to pieces, and the supply containers have all been smashed and their contents scattered. The dust has settled, and there's a thick layer of scarlet sand covering everything. The body panels on the transport have been largely shredded. The engine is exposed and the wiring is... Wait, I can hear something. My god, it's the creature! It's returning! I can see it more clearly now. It must be at least 8 foot tall. It might have fur, or that might be some kind of clothing. I can't tell from this distance. Is this truly a native creature of Mars? It appears almost... My god, I think it's seen me. Please, if you get this transmission, send help. Send the military...
Mars Base Epsilon. Base destroyed. Completely unsalvageable. If we hadn't noticed some strange claw marks on several of the building's remains, we might have thought it was a storm of some kind. We have recovered one data core with a series of audio logs. No body, though. Am attaching analyses of samples with this transmission. Carstairs out.